This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the Narrowgate Security Agency studios.
Supporting the right man who will allow you to make America great again. God bless you. God bless the United States of America and our next President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Sarah Palin and millions of others are supporting Donald J. Trump, the GOP frontrunner pulling away now in votes and delegates. But in the bizarro world of Ted Cruz, well, the Texas senator named a running mate this past week. A running mate, despite the fact that Cruz is mathematically eliminated from winning the nomination pre-Cleveland. Today we'll talk about that imagination amalgamation and much more with Breitbart reporter, the great writer Michelle Moons. Donald Trump dominates the eastern seaboard with 5 mandate victories. Sarah Palin corrects Ted Cruz on his basketball terminology and praises a Trump endorsement from a hoops icon. Palin features daughter Bristol Palin's blog that points out the gross hypocrisy at ESPN. The piece includes Curt Schilling's appearance right here on Mama Grizzly Radio. And just ahead, a brand new installment of Liberty and Legacy with Tamara Colbert in Texas. Sarah Steelman is off this week. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. The Palin Update is sponsored by Narrowgate Security Agency. Learn more at narrowgate.com. Michelle Moons is one of the best there is. Her Breitbart pieces have been thorough and really take you inside all of the political action. She has been covering Ted Cruz's campaign of late, and we want to talk to Michelle today about this imagination amalgamation, if you will, between Cruz and Carly Fiorina and much more. And right now we welcome in the great writer for Breitbart News, Michelle Moons. Michelle, thank you for joining us, and welcome back to the Palin Update.
Oh, good to be back, Kevin.
So you have really been on Cruz duty, so to speak, of late, covering a lot of the campaign here for Senator Cruz and his run for the presidency. And after losing 5 states in one night to Donald Trump and finishing behind John Kasich in those 5 states as well, Cruz names a running mate this past week. Carly Fiorina, who former presidential candidate herself, an opponent of Cruz, now a running mate for Cruz, but Cruz is well behind in the delegate count behind Donald Trump. He's mathematically out of it if you look at trying to win before Cleveland. Let me ask you this, from covering it, do you get the sense of, does Senator Cruz and the campaign really believe that they are going to win this, or is this just an all-out attempt to stop Trump any way possible?
I believe that he actually thinks he can win this on a second ballot at a contested convention, or maybe more than that. But as any decent campaign is going to tell you, they're going to give you the brightest possibility for what's going to be the outcome. So for him, a second ballot at the contested convention, winning the delegates, and he thinks he can do it. And so, I mean, we'll see how things play out. Indiana's coming up very shortly, and that will make a big difference in whether or not Trump could make the 1237. If he wins Indiana, we're going to see it a lot harder for them to deny Trump the nomination. But again, I just recently interviewed Cruz one-on-one, and he said that, again, the positive outlook for his campaign is that, well, no, he doesn't think that Trump can get to the 1237 before the contested convention. He maintains that, no, nobody's going to get to the 1237. And then, of course, we have added in the factor of Kasich still being in the race, who have all been at the California convention recently and have been hitting the campaign trail. You've got Kasich has been up in Oregon and probably will be in New Mexico soon, because that was part of sort of their little agreement. Well, they're saying that there's no alliance, Cruz and Kasich, but they did have those joint press releases that came out recently saying that Cruz was going to focus on Indiana. And so we'll see what comes out on Tuesday. It is looking neck and neck between Trump and Cruz. He has been releasing a number of press releases and a number of endorsements, Cruz has, and it could bump him up. I mean, he has shown a little bit of an increase in the polls since this past week. And again, it's going to definitely affect the rest of the race going forward. But we have California coming up on June 7th, and that's 172 delegates. So no matter which way you slice it, if it goes to Trump, if he gets to the 1237, it's going to be on June 7. And if he doesn't, that's going to be on June 7. So Indiana's big, and then, you come up with California, and undeniably that's going to be a hotbed. And they're all starting to come here because there's the mail ballots that go out very soon. And so California voters are going to be voting very soon, a lot by mail-in ballots. A lot of those mail-in ballots will be in by the end of May, around May 25th. A bulk of them are already in. And that was one of the ways that Cruz did so well in Texas. I mean, it's his home state, yes, but the lieutenant governor there had estimated that about 500,000 people had voted before you even had other candidates coming to the state. It affected the results of the race. So you see Trump holding rallies here, you see Cruz coming to visit, and then, of course, Kasich came to the California GOP convention. They're starting to direct their attention here as well.
Can you understand the people who are saying this goes against the will of the people of what Cruz, and especially Kasich, who was eliminated? I mean, he's still was behind Rubio, and we'll talk about him later. But even Cruz now mathematically out, he can't hit that number before Cleveland. If they did get to Cleveland and had a contested convention, how do you make an argument when you're so many millions of votes behind the front runner? And two, what do you think happens GOP-wise if they did say it's someone besides Trump?
Well, I think that you have Trump saying he's made the comment that there will be riots if it's not him, or if it's not Cruz. If we do go to a contested convention, if it's not either Trump or Cruz, there will likely be some sort of fallout. I think that that's fair to say, because at least they are the two with the most votes. Nobody else even comes close to either one of them. And Cruz is behind. We have had a number of contested conventions, and that's what Cruz cites as, well, this contested convention, that contested convention in the past did result in candidates that were maybe the second candidate getting the nomination and going on to win. Whether that's the case, I mean, we have a year that is unprecedented. We haven't had a year like this. The fact that we don't have Jeb Bush as our nominee, the establishment candidate that we always end up with, whether that's the John McCain of 2008, the Mitt Romney of 2012, it's quite astonishing that we don't have that main establishment candidate that everyone that used the conventional wisdom said that we were going to have. I talked to people in that realm, and they said, "Oh, you're getting Jeb Bush. You're getting Jeb Bush," and you're going, we see this happen again and again. Could we see that not happen this year? And you're seeing that people, the grassroots, come out, whether that be for Cruz, whether that be for Trump, really. And this is the thing that I was talking about just recently with on our radio show, but is that I'm seeing this debate go on between people from both those camps, and they're having constructive conversations. Maybe they're both still in their own camps and they're defending their own camps, but they're having good conversations with each other. It's not you see stuff out on social media that can get pretty heated, but I'm seeing people having in-person conversations that are just very constructive. Whereas you see the left come in and run these protests where they're violent and they're smashing cop cars. I was recently at the rally that was in Costa Mesa, the Trump rally outside, where it got violent. And that's where you're seeing people that aren't having these constructive conversations. And on the conservative side, you're seeing people talking to each other and making their arguments, smart arguments for either one. And I think in the end, if there can be a unity that I think there can be, I think that that's what either candidate would hope to see. I hope that that's what either one would hope to see in the end, because if they can't figure out a way to, whichever one wins the nomination, if they can't find a way to bring the other camp's supporters over, then I don't know how you win the election in November with either one of them.
Well, isn't that a little deceiving, though, when we say they're the top two? I mean, isn't that like saying, in an NFL division, if the first place team is 15-1 and the second place team is 7-9, well, yeah, they are the top two, but Trump is rolling here. Trump is way ahead in delegates and
he is way ahead,
and in
but
votes.
He hasn't gotten the 1237 yet.
No, he has right. He hasn't gotten a manufactured a number made by the Republican Party that they can change anytime they want, like they did to Ron Paul. But that he has gotten the will of the people. And if this was George Bush or John McCain or Mitt Romney, they'd be coalescing behind him right now.
And calling him the presumptive nominee. Right,
and everybody would be told, hey, back off.
Yeah.
And don't you also feel that if they did do this nonsense in Cleveland, there's no guarantee it's Cruz either. I mean, they could be using him right now and then roll out, the Paul Ryans and the whoever else, these other, wonderful establishment guys. So,
Well, and you hear, this is one of the things that you hear again and again lately is, so who is it that the establishment would try and bring in? I mean, whether or not they're going to do that, not sure. But it's definitely been talked about. And you look at it and you go, Rubio hasn't endorsed anyone. He has supporters that haven't re-endorsed anyone. And he still has more delegates than Kasich has. And he hasn't released a number of them. He's asked to keep them. Why is that? So could it be a Rubio, them trying to bring back in a Rubio? Could they try to bring in Paul Ryan because he's going to be the head of this whole thing? Do they try to sweep in somebody else? I think they've definitely thought through who they could bring in, and that is a factor. You have to think that through. Is that something that the establishment is actually going to try and do at the convention? Because they don't want to lose power.
Well, they don't want to lose power, but they can't be that stupid, though. They do realize that if one of these candidates is not the nominee, that there is zero chance of winning. Do they realize, like the Karl Roves, do they know this or no?
But do they always care about winning?
No, they don't, obviously.
Do they care about, so we end up with these establishment candidates, and they say that they're going to try and put forth, well, they're the one that can win. But they don't win. 2008, John McCain didn't win. 2012, Mitt Romney didn't win. What is their track record? If they really cared about winning, we would have winning candidates. The second term of Obama got reelected. The fact that Obama they picked a candidate that allowed Obama to get reelected, not even the first time, the second time get reelected, that tells you that how much do they really care about winning? If could they have nominated another candidate that could have done it?
What about this whole Fiorina deal? What kind of impact does this have? Why is a guy picking a running mate? It's almost unprecedented when he's not the nominee and not even close to being the nominee. And also, I mean, it's not like you're picking someone who is going to wow the country. I mean, unless you're a Politico, you don't know who she is anyway. So, thoughts on Fiorina?
Well, so I will say this, is that Cruz is, as many conservative Republicans, is a big fan of Reagan. Not saying he did it because of this, but in modern history, the one that we've seen do this before the convention is Ronald Reagan in '76. It did not work. He came back later, but in that year, he did not overcome the odds with picking this early VP pick. He picked Fiorina. There may be some strategy in that because she did run for Senate in California, but she lost. So there is that factor, and that's what I'm hearing people talk about. But there is likely some strategy in the fact that she has name ID in California. Will people vote for the ticket because of that? And Cruz has been on the campaign trail talking about this early pick and his reasons for doing it. And one of the things that boils down to this year is just every pundit that you hear from, they've all been wrong, at least about something. From Jeb Bush is going to be the nominee to, oh, well, then Bush is out now. Rubio, he's the lead for the establishment. I mean, the fact that we have candidates that are not the establishment's main picks for president, that we don't have the Jeb Bush, that we don't have the Rubio, that is quite astonishing. The grassroots has managed to come out. Americans have come out, and the people that have been put up are your not typical establishment candidates. And that is an election year that is historic, unprecedented, and I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens going forward. Now, I will say this, is I've seen Trump's campaign on the delegate realm seem to be having a little bit more organization as far as working with delegate strategy, if you will, being organized. I've seen an improvement in that since they brought on Manafort because of his experience, likely. And so they seem to be making efforts there. And Trump looks very good in polling out in California. He's got quite a bit of support. And here in California, it's a congressional district by congressional district wins. So you get three delegates for each congressional district that you win. And in those, Trump is looking very good. So I think that Indiana will be very important heading into California and some other states. And if Trump wins Indiana, it's going to be incrementally harder for him not to be the nominee. But we'll see. To deny him the nomination, I think we're going to have to see what happens going forward and where they end up in the end. If he's just shy of it, it's going to be hard. But I think that Trump has increased his strategy on the delegate realm. His team is organized more so than ever, I think. And but both camps are pushing for this nomination. So I think we're going to see more of those surrogates too, probably out on the campaign trail. You see Cruz pulling more of them out, and I've seen both of them talk about how early on there were 17 candidates in the race. So Trump talks about how it was hard to get as many delegates because of that as well, and what factor that played in where things are at now. The fact that we are this late in the game and nobody has gotten to the number that they need. California's never a player, and this year it's a player. I mean, even Indiana is not usually as highlighted as it has been. You have states that aren't used to being in the spotlight for this. When Colorado happened and they were choosing delegates, I talked to their party GOP chairman and some others in their party, and they were saying, we've never had national media outlets come to our state convention, and now they are. So I think as we go forward, we'll see more about if people do come out for Trump and give him the 1237. I mean, that could definitely happen.
Well, I think a lot of people are just, rubbed the wrong way when you, instead of having two candidates trying to win, you have one trying to win and one trying to stop the other from winning. That gets a lot of people, more disenfranchised with a system that they're sick of already. So,
I mean, they are sick of the establishment of the system, and that's because they've been burned. And I think that's why we don't have an establishment candidate this year. I mean, their typical pick, their number one pick for their candidate.
Who's the bigger get in Indiana, Mike Pence or Bobby Knight? What's the better endorsement?
I think Bobby Knight's pretty influential, and I will say that the Mike Pence endorsement was, if you can quite call it that, and they were calling it that, but It was very tepid, and he did quite praise Trump in the midst of it. So that tells you, I mean, probably a couple of things, but I think that he is probably also hedging his bets on if Trump's the nominee, then that he doesn't create an enemy in that either.
Yeah. I'm
so he
surprised
said he's voting for Trump.
I'm surprised with Bobby.
Sorry for Cruz.
I'm surprised with Bobby Knight that the lamestream media didn't report that, you know, he threw a chair at the rally and it hit one of the peaceful protesters.
Yeah, sure.
You said the surrogates we could expect more. Any chance of Fiorina singing and Glenn Beck crying simultaneously on stage?
Oh, who knows? You know, when you get certain personalities involved, anything is possible. But yeah, I mean, yes, Fiorina singing at the VP announcement was definitely a talking point there for a while. But I think that, you know, it's going to be politics can be theater at times, and a lot of this has gone that way for better or for worse. But I will say that I think we have definitely not seen the end of protesters, as we see more, particularly probably Trump rallies in California, the high number of illegal aliens in this area of the country, that you will see more of that. But I think you'll see more of people that are Trump supporters being enthusiastic and peaceful. At the Costa Mesa Trump rally not that long ago, he was holding this rally and everybody inside was all peaceful, and you had protesters coming. The anti-Trump protesters were the ones that were turning violent, and you had people that weren't able to get into the rally who probably weren't happy about it. I knew people that were out there and getting turned away after being outside of a door for 3 hours. You would think like you're going to be pretty disappointed, but what ended up happening, the protesters came, they're being antagonistic. I saw one of them walking around with an F Trump shirt, actually being antagonistic, trying to pick a fight with people in line.
Sure.
And what ended up happening is, as people were getting turned away from this rally and the protesters were there, they started singing God Bless America and the Star Spangled Banner. Yeah. That was the reaction you saw from the Trump people there for the Trump rally, the Trump supporters. I think we'll see more of that as well.
What's with Kasich with this eating deal? He's shoving food in his mouth. The whole pancake.
And he's trying to be the everyman.
The pancake thing was fine, and then I'm announcing a ball game, and I look down at my phone and I have a picture of him with spaghetti, half on the plate and half in the mouth, and the cheeks are out, and I don't need to see this anymore. What is this?
Knife and fork for your pizza in New York, or he was eating a big sandwich in New York, I think. I mean, maybe the guy's really hungry. I don't know.
Maybe go to each state and do, when Nebraska comes up, corn on the cob and have a potato in Idaho. Should he do that? Maybe make it a state thing?
Maybe he's branding himself by state.
Yeah.
So there you go. Whatever food the state is related to, have that food, and maybe the people there will relate their state food to your state. Although I don't know what California would be. Maybe he'll eat an orange.
No. Well, that may be 10 years ago. We're talking tofu or kale, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, could be.
Well, if he mercifully drops out by Independence Day, he could go to the Nathan's hot dog eating deal, take on Kobayashi, Joey Chestnut, and John Kasich. Maybe that's
I
one.
Heard somebody joke. Yeah.
Probably still finish third, but
today that he's going to run until December.
Yeah, certainly through Thanksgiving. All right, Michelle Moons. Well, listen, you're doing a great job. If you haven't checked out Michelle, please do at Breitbart. And exciting times. Obviously, I know you love this stuff, and it shows by your writing. It's always great to have you here, and thanks for all your insight.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kevin. It's always great to be on with you.
To check out all of Michelle Moon's great work, head to Breitbart.com. Donald Trump rolled to victory this past week in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Delaware, not only winning each state, but all the counties in those states. An amazing night for Trump. Ted Cruz picks a running mate after this. Alternate universe, folks. Palin congratulated Trump on the 5 wins on Facebook and Twitter. Palin also took to social media to swat Ted Cruz and assist Trump. Palin, a champion basketball player in her playing days, corrected Cruz after he inexplicably called a basketball hoop a ring. Palin wrote online, "It's smarter to actually put the ball through the hoop before you claim victory." Palin also included some great pictures from her playing days. And the governor lauded the endorsement of Trump from Indiana legend Bob Knight. Palin writing, "Bobby Knight endorses Trump. Coach Knight knows what it takes. This means a lot to Americans who really want to win again. Thank you, Coach Knight. You've always been a courageous one. And thank you, Hoosiers, and all the other states who slam dunked it for freedom last night. Your good judgment in trusting the Trump movement with your vote is so incredibly encouraging, gives us faith in the oncoming Great Awakening many of us recognize and appreciate, where the GOP machine shall deservedly be dismantled while eradicating the stupidity of the failed liberals' agenda via votes representing the will of the people. Americans are sick and tired of the corrupt establishment's status quo, so kudos to you, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania for last night's victories. The Trump movement will not disappoint. We need a revolution. We found our revolutionary for America to win. Our candidate has the will to win. More importantly, as proven by his unmatched work ethic and record of success, Donald Trump has the will to prepare to win." And a great piece from Bristol Palin this past week on her blog. The Palin's eldest daughter pointed out the gross hypocrisy from ESPN, the network that fired Curt Schilling, but was okay with their hosts laughing at rape, harassment, and vehicular assault. All of the examples had Governor Palin as the target. I also wrote a piece on the worldwide leader in hypocrisy, ESPN, at Breitbart this past week. Bristol's blog included excerpts of Schilling's appearance right here on Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Bristol for that inclusion. Always an honor, and keep up the great work. Sarah Palin responded to Bristol's important piece, linking it on social media and simply writing, "Hey, Bristol, yup, love Mom." To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page, follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA, and check out sarahpac.com.
Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
Those of us who've been involved in grassroots activism have few modern-day heroes. And by hero, I mean man or woman of valor, conviction, and substance that we might look up to as an example. Today, our federal legislators are being bought and paid for to the highest bidder or contributor. This week, I learned that a lot of states choose their delegates to the national GOP convention based on how much money or influence they've contributed to that party in that state. Thankfully, I get inspired because I get to work every day with men and women of principle and conviction who don't look for favors, but look to God for support, wisdom, and clarity in their own principles and life. One of those men that I highly respect is former Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn. I get to work with him. How amazing is that? And no, I'm not going to elevate him to some status. He's just a man. But he is a man who conscientiously thinks about the legacy that he's leaving, right? Because after all, our legacy is directly tied to the liberty we enjoy in America. As a Tea Party co-founder, I have met with and tried to educate many state and federal legislators over the past 7 years. And a majority of them, A, can't be trusted, and B, always disappoint. Which is why God says, don't have hope in these earthly matters. Always look heavenward to our eternal assurance. However, we must live here, and that the fact that God has blessed us as sovereigns within our nation gives us a duty, a right, and a mandate to be part of the process of our federal government. Well, this week, Senator Tom Coburn was testifying on Capitol Hill before the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. And let me just say, the man is fearless. Why? He answers to God. He answers to conscience. He works as though he's working for God and not man. Man, I want to be that, live that, and work that every day. I want to be better. I want to live for God. I want to work for God and let him work through me. Senator Coburn has made his service tenure in the halls of Congress one based on exposing the backroom deals and the deceit in the dark, but bringing all of it into the light by using truth and facts. This week he said, America doesn't trust you, the Congress, anymore. That's the truth, and that doesn't mean they're right all the time, but you've lost their confidence. Not one party, but both. When you have hundreds of billions of dollars that could be saved and aren't, the American people know it. They actually read your reports. In 2015, he spent his time in 21 different states. He says America doesn't trust you because they don't see your actions that should be coming out of Congress as to why they sent you there. He was brilliant. And he also shared with the committee that the unfunded liabilities in America, including the debt, is over $142 trillion. That is $1 million per taxpayer. I mean, do you really know what a trillion is? I don't. It's like monopoly money. But Coburn continued to enlighten the Senate committee, saying the federal government has too much power. It's too intrusive, and it's directly to blame for the median family income that is the same size today in 2016 as it was in 1988. Well, of course, we're all feeling squeezed. Duh. While government worker salaries are rising, ours aren't. That means wages have been stagnant for the American worker for almost 30 years. Hello. Well, during this same meeting, Eugene Dodaro, who's the controller of the United States, head of the GAO, also testified, highlighting that his report gave 92 different recommendations. I want to tell you a couple of them. For example, streamlining the Department of Homeland Security to end more than, get this, 400 separate human resource management systems. The Department of Homeland Security has more than 400 separate human resource management systems. We need to also end the Pentagon's $118 million annual expenditure on destroying ammunition. And of course, he suggested as one of the top things to do, reduce improper disability payments. And Coburn pointed also to the fraud in the Social Security disability program and suggested it's time to go to a simple and fair tax code also that could eliminate 90,000 IRS jobs, whose agents, by the way, make 77% more than the average American worker. Alexis de Tocqueville observed that centralized power of small, complicated rules, minutia, and uniform leads to the will of man, not shattered, but softened, bent, and guided. And that happens when a centralized federal government gets bigger and tries to take and exert more authority than it has. Essentially, that squeezes a nation and its people. So yes, we're being squeezed. We're being squeezed out of our liberty by our own government, and we're letting them do it without a fight. I will fight. Will you? The point is, people, the only way we're going to have more liberty is to pray. Pray for ourselves. Pray for the right leaders to get into place and do something, because our Constitution gives you and I the right to support an Article 5 Convention of States. That's why we need you in this grassroots army at the Convention of States project. We need you now. I will never settle for anything less than the full restoration of the rule of law and the Constitution. It is time to refocus our priorities. What are you going to do about it? Tweet me this week at Tamara Colbert, hashtag Mama Grizzly Radio. I can't wait to hear from you. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. Sarah Steelman is on assignment. She'll return next week with a brand new edition of Steel Resolve. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook and follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Tamara Colbert, and at Sarah_Steelman. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Tamara Colbert and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Michelle Moons, and thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, Narrowgate Security Agency. Visit narrowgate.com. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lori Ann Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.